Welcome back to the Principles of Seven. I am your host, Dave Sharp. Today, we're going to find out what Hastings, Nebraska has to do with Charlie Kirk. And Candace Owens is asking about Lincoln, Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, the Nebraska connection to Charlie Kirk. That connection, 7 months ago, I put out a disclosure video talking about disclosure that was coming to Hastings, Nebraska. And in that, I predicted that we were going to be sitting in the city auditorium. And I still believe that to be the case. Let me get some coffee. What does this have to do with Charlie Kirk? Well, I want to tell you that I'm probably the only person you're going to find that was sitting in a police station in Hastings, Nebraska, speaking to Detective Nathan Hansen at 12:23 Central Time, 1 hour before Charlie Kirk was shot. But at the exact same time. How did I come to be sitting in that police station? And what does that have to do with Charlie Kirk? The way that unfolded was at around 11:40 local time, that's Central Time Zone, in Hastings, Nebraska. I made a phone call to Detective Josh Onken of the Hastings Police Department. And there was a previous situation that's going to become important later that would put me on a rooftop videotaping a theft. And what I told Josh that day was that it was a matter of national security. And he informed me that he was out of state training and that he had actually answered me in the middle of training. And I asked him if there was somebody there that he trusted in Hastings that I could speak to right away. And Josh had Detective Nathan Hansen call me, and I asked Josh, "Do you trust this man?" And he said, "Absolutely, I do." So shortly after noon, local time, Detective Hansen contacts me. And I asked to speak with him. At 12:15, I'm walking into the Hastings Police Department, in the area, ready to rock and roll. What I told Detective Nathan Hansen that day goes a long ways to answering Candace Owens' questions. And this is going to be one of the biggest stories that people have talked about and I believe that it's not going to take very long for people to realize that this is all taking place because of a special operation, let's call it. And there's several of those going on at once. And I'll try to talk a little softer. I see my mic peeking in the red. So what was it that I told Detective Nathan Hansen that day, and how does that have anything to do with Charlie Kirk? Well, I told him about something that involves billions of dollars. In situations like this, all you have to do is follow the money. The next morning, because I'm not going to disclose what I said to Detective Hansen, and there's a reason for that. And what I said to Josh that day, that it was a matter of national security, is 100% the truth. Before that is released to the public, there is something that needs to take place with what I said in that interview room that day. And this has to be done locally, and I'll tell you why it has to be done locally. Of the number of people that are going to wind up watching this video, you're going to be left with questions, and you're going to be seeking answers. And I'll tell you that one of the terms that was thrown around in that interview room was PSYOPs. And there is a psychological operation that has taken place in this country. And in fact, there's several of them. Now, some of you watching who would be labeled by the people around you as conspiracy theorists. And anybody that knows anything about these programs will tell you that usually the only thing that separates a conspiracy theory from the truth is time. And only the best of PSYOPs stand the test of time. And when they do, and I'm talking about a PSYOP that goes back thousands of years, it's a pretty damn good one. Or it has a way to be perpetuated. And And if a PSYOP is running that long and is that effective, there has to be some sort of vulnerability. So that would mean that we're all vulnerable. And that is an absolute fact. Getting back to Charlie Kirk. I directed Detective Hansen's attention directly to Utah. And I gave him information in that interview that put me in the position to leave him a message the next morning, right off the rip, making sure that I called his attention to the fact that what happened to Charlie Kirk happened while I was sitting in there talking to him. And I made sure in that conversation the next morning that I directed his attention to the fact that he really needed to be paying attention to the things that I was saying. And I would be willing to bet you, because what I told him, his words to me were, "It seems like you're trying to get me to do my research." And that was a factual statement. And you're going to find that I'm going to do the exact same thing to every one of you. If you don't have the answers to all of this, if you have children watching, send them away right now. Hopefully, they're gone from the room. One of the things that I called his attention to was the number of children that go missing inside the United States every single year. Every one of you has a phone. And on that phone, you can find out just about anything. The problem we have right now inside of this country is that nobody gives a shit about what's really happening. They don't want to know. They don't want to turn on the news because they know the news is compromised. And I'm going to suggest to you that it's even more compromised now than you even know. It has always been a part of the PSYOP. Going back to 1947. When we take a look at the number of children that go missing every year, just in the United States, you're going to find numbers from 400 to 460,000. Nearly 500,000 children go missing in the United States every single year. Anybody that goes to the bathroom at your local Walmart is going to be walking past a board that is displaying children that are missing. Now, I will contend with you that if you took every bit of wall space that is visible on the inside and the outside of that Walmart Supercenter, you still don't have enough area to put all those children. That's a big problem for anybody who gives a shit. We've had some things happen in Hastings, and I'm going to get back to Charlie Kirk, but it's important that people understand what's taking place. And there seems to be a pattern happening here. And when I say here, I mean in Hastings, Nebraska. Let's scroll back to Anthony Pingle. Leaves the bar drinking. What I would call a prominent member of the community. Do your own research, decide. Out behind AGP on a gravel road, trying to get home. In his mind thinking that gravel is the safest place to be. He runs a stop sign and takes the life of some very young people. There was a fireman on scene that day. And that's going to become important later as well. Since that situation, the number of accidents that we've seen in Hastings involving telephone poles, electric poles. It's crazy. You can go on Facebook and find one that was posted from a security camera is the one that happened on 3rd Street. And you see clearly, they just drive right through the intersection and hit the pole and they flip their vehicle. Almost like it was a movie. Then we had a mother who's connected to another part of this story. And they move away. And the reason that one led to a 16-year-old child in Gordon, Nebraska, stabbing her newborn baby that she gave birth to in that room with a kitchen knife 36 times, slitting its throat and putting it in a dog food bag. Let's just say there's a lot of dark things that are happening And that's just not here. That's everywhere. It's almost like a switch has been flipped. Those of you in Hastings, you also know we just found a young child in a ditch off of Marion Road. There's more to that story than people know right now. And there's probably going to be some questions as to how there's a group of us that know more about this. That one's going to come back to another 2-year-old. Had died on April the 4th of this year. In Hastings. Read that obituary. Sad. Very sad. My life's going to become very personal. And this is an unbelievable story. But when it's done, there's not going to be any doubt that somehow I knew that Charlie Kirk was going to be assassinated. And I think there's a lot of people that knew that that was going to take place. And I think you're seeing that. I think if you do your research, you will find out that there were some questions about why people were looking at certain things at certain times. I don't think anybody's going to give you any answers. Half of you don't trust the FBI. And there's good reason for that. There's enough questions surrounding this. But that's not the only prediction that was made. Inside of this room, on June the 20th, "24 hours, a little over 24 hours. This took place at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on June the 20th. And I sat here in the same room with a Marine sitting right there. And that Marine's going to become important because he was there for a few other events. Let me put it this way. We were actually roommates for quite a while. On June the 20th, I sat here in this office in front of a Florida State Seminole. He was sitting right there. My stepson, Austin, that'll become important later, was sitting right there in a chair. Robbie was right over there. Michael was right here. And I made sure I called attention to it in a way that it couldn't be denied. And we were discussing the fact that Trump had just said that he was giving Iran some time to make a decision. And what I said was, I guarantee you that tomorrow night at midnight, which would have been June 21st at midnight, I said, I guarantee you that tomorrow night at midnight, they're going to hammer him. This is on Friday, before they ever started Operation Midnight Hammer. They're going to hammer him at midnight. And the Marine said, doesn't make any sense to me. Just got done saying that he's going to give him 2 more weeks. And I looked at him and I sent him a text after they came out and announced that they had dropped the missiles on the Iran nuclear facilities. Not only did I say when it was going to happen, and it did, it happened at midnight. I also gave the operational name. They're going to hammer them at midnight. Why did I do that? In preparation for what was happening with Charlie Kirk. Because if somebody, and I've got a video that I recorded weeks ago in which I allude to the fact that I'm dropping later. I like to do things ahead of time, and I document everything. You'll find that that's been a very important thing to do throughout this. So, in that video, I play a clip of Pete Hegseth during the Army-Navy football game. And he's talking about keeping secrets and that was kept a secret. Well, I got news for you. It wasn't kept a secret. Because not only inside this very room did I tell people what was going to happen, over 24 hours ahead of time, an hour before Charlie Kirk was shot local time at the exact same time, 12:23. I'm also directing their attention to Charlie Kirk after I tell Josh Onken it's a matter of national security. What kind of crazy person would be sitting in a police station directing their attention to Utah after saying that it was a matter of national security and giving him the information that I did if it was all a bunch of crap? it turns out it wasn't a bunch of crap. So now we have to answer ourselves a question. Why is Candace Owens following a connection to Nebraska? How many times did she mention Nebraska on her Halloween episode? The greatest thing about Halloween and it being over is that's when we take masks off. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going to ensure that the mask comes off. And when this is all said and done, because we're going to go through a process, right here in the middle of America, right now there should be about 125 subscribers to this channel. You're going to want to stay tuned because it's going to get good. And you're going to learn a lot about your country. You're going to learn a lot about people. And you're going to learn a lot about the human mind, how it works, and how they control it. And this ain't nothing more than a special operation that is designed to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it's going to be an unbelievable story, but it's also undeniable. Find one thing that I lie about. One. There's a Latin phrase. Falsus in unos, falsus in omnibus. That translates to, if you lie about one thing, you lie about everything. And that is a great thing to have in your head when you're being a judge. I'm going to put you guys on some research. You're going to have to do some research because you're not going to take my word for anything. You're going to find out for yourselves. And there's going to be a lot of people off the rip of this that have already gone. They've already left this video. And that's fine. Because eventually, they're not going to have a choice. You'll find out what that means. Let's get back to coffee. You'll find that's all I do is it's my greatest water source. Probably not a good idea for a man that had a heart attack when he was 39 years old, huh? It is truly an unbelievable story. But there's a timeline of what took place and why it took place, who was involved, and the proof of that. So, I like to be upfront and honest when I'm going to manipulate the shit out of somebody. Psychology is something that I studied devoutly when I was a young person. I have taken let's just say when it comes to profiling, and there, you'll find that there are things that I am unable to say due to NDAs that I have signed, and I don't want to, everything that I'm doing, let me put it this way, everything that I'm doing has taken place in the public sector, out here in the open. You'll know what that means later. And that's going to become very important. Because I have free latitude. I'm not hindered. The way my brother Dylan Borland was hindered on September the 9th, the day before Charlie Kirk was shot. Dylan Borland. How many of you know anything about Dylan Borland? Well, Dylan Borland was testifying in Congress the day before Charlie Kirk was shot. What was Dylan Borland testifying to? That's a question. Look that up. There was also a bill. Let's just say there was something being passed the day that Charlie Kirk was being shot. And let's assume that the timing of everything has a lot to do with changing the perception and sleight of hand. It's like a magician. When they want to distract you, they create something to captivate. And the more dramatic it is, the more eyes and heads they turn that direction. It's kind of like a magician directing your attention. They get you to pay attention to something so that you don't see something else. And you're going to find that your attention is something that they like to control. And you can also think of that as awareness. That'll become important later on down the road. Your awareness is the one thing that you should be directing that most people don't. They let other people maintain their awareness. There seems to be something blatantly obvious. Without divulging too much of what I said to Detective Hansen, the place where that took place is important. And it's important enough that you find out who was looking into Utah. We're going to take a break and I'll be right back. Okay, after a little discussion and contemplation, I feel like we wrap back around to Candace Owens. There are just some people that are not going to let sleeping dogs lie. And there are times where that is the last possible thing we should be doing. And I think there's enough sleep going on, and I think we need to wake up. And I've alluded to a lot of instances that makes it very difficult to try to cram this into a video like this when there are so many major things that need to be discussed. But I think the best tact right now is with questions. Get people to answer questions. And it's very difficult to get into any type of situations that could come about from these topics when you're asking questions. Now, asking the wrong questions has got a lot of people killed. And as you're going to find, there are some people that have already wanted me dead. And I should put it out there right now. I'm not suicidal. Should anything happen to me, even question natural causes. And I don't say that for any type of drama. I think once we get deeper and deeper into these topics, you're going to understand why I've said that. In my line of work, there are several things that are very important. One, what we call your cover team. Your cover team is the most important asset that you could have. And let's just say I have a really good one. And part of what I've done in this special operation involved being in a position to travel all over this country. And I've met a lot of people. The other thing that's very important outside of your cover team is when you have an agenda-based operation, especially one that is this broad, let's put it that way for now. We utilize what we term as dead man switches. And I have a litany of those. And there's documents, recordings. You're going to find that eventually some of this stuff is going to make it in front of some courtrooms for several different reasons. Some of that you need to stay tuned for the November the 6th video. That's going to expose a lot of darkness. The dead man switches. Scattered about amongst numerous individuals. Is years of proof. And when I say years, I mean years, decades. And it's coming to a crescendo, a peak, if you will. And we're not that far away from the top of this pyramid. There's things that are happening right now inside of this country that keeps talking about disclosure. Now, we talked a little bit about Dylan Borland, and you'll find I do this quite often, and I do this for a reason. Anybody that goes back and re-watches this video, you're going to find that there's some Easter eggs inside of it. Some questions have already been answered. And I can promise you, this is real. Dylan Borland, the day before Charlie Kirk was shot, was testifying in front of Congress, as well as Jeremy Corbell and Mr. Knapp, George Knapp. And they're trying to tell you something, and they have been for a long time. And the things that Dylan Borland testified to there that day was pretty shocking. I'll give you that. But I think the most shocking thing that you should take from that testimony is that there was a particular question that he was asked. And remember, he's speaking to Congress. And if you know anything about Congress and the military, you would understand how shocking this really is. What the man said after he was asked a question about NHI, which is non-human intelligence. Now, mind you, again, this is the day before Charlie Kirk is shot. And what he said to Congress was that he would only be able to speak about that in a skiff, a Faraday cage. And inside of skiffs is where conversations take place. That you just don't want to let out. And what he told Congress was that due to security clearance reasons, he didn't even know if he would be able to speak to them about the subject. Non-human intelligence. How many of you know what that is? There's been a lot of whistleblower activity surrounded by a lot of disinformation. And you have certain people coming out speaking like Lou Elizondo, Jacob Barber. Jacob Barber, the News Nation interview with Ross Coulthart. I would implore all of you to watch that video in its entirety. And I want you to think about what he's saying. And I want you to watch the emotions that come over this man, a very hardened man, a Tier 1 operator, to do certain aspects of protecting this country. Some people are required to take polygraph tests, mental exams. And for what Jacob Barber does, that's exactly what he would have had to have done. So, he's not full of shit. Unless he is part of a psyop, which is what everybody fears, right? Nobody trusts the government. Disinformation. But what Jacob Barber described when he connected with what is being termed as non-human intelligence, he breaks down in tears because he says it's the most loving thing he's ever felt in his life. And he says it's still with him to this day and guiding him. Very similar story and description of what Chris Bledsoe is talking about. Chris Bledsoe. I say it again so you can do your research. Excuse me. The reason why I paused the video earlier, I don't want to go too much further down the road of Utah and Charlie Kirk until we give Candace Owens, Ross Coulthart, a few others, an opportunity to stumble upon the right questions. And the people that they're trying to get the right questions to are unable to answer their questions formally. I'm going to wrap this one up here pretty soon. Candace Owens. Keep going down the road you're going. Look at the documents that I gave you. There are principles that I take very seriously that guide me in my life. You can answer just about any question by following some simple principles. One of the things I want to leave you with. I've brought up a lot of topics. And I've told you some facts. A couple of other facts that I want you to know. If any one of you go onto YouTube right now, just type in Aleph, Aleph, and Tav, Tav. Eclipse patterns. You're going to find that the 2017, the 2023, and the 2024 solar eclipses make a pattern over the United States. And that pattern is the Aleph and the Tav. That is the first and the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It means the beginning and the end. The other thing I want you to pay attention to and do your research on is whether or not over Texas, where that crosses, the Aleph and the Tav, whether or not it crosses over Kerrville, Texas. Kerrville, Texas is where the flood was earlier this year. In March. Excuse me. I was not in March. March 5th of 2025 was the day that there was a request that was granted. And we'll talk more about that. But what I want you to find out is whether or not the Aleph and the Tav. Let me see if we can get this to show up on camera, just so we can show you. Huh. I don't know if you can see that. But that's what it looks like. So, right here, in Texas, right here. Look and see where that crosses. That's strange. I will I'll let you guys do some research. And if any of you in Hastings happen to know Detective Josh Onken or Detective Nathan Hansen, going to find out that what I'm saying is true. The other question that I want you to ask yourselves, if you go on to my YouTube channel where this video is going to be posted, and you see the other videos that are there, you're going to see that I've been making some videos for a while now. The videos that I have up there are there for a very good purpose. Why did I wait until now? This happened on September the 10th. When you look at the number of views that the Charlie Kirk assassination has garnered, and if I sat in the Hastings, Nebraska Police Department discussing it starting an hour before Charlie was actually shot at 12:23 local time in Hastings, which would have been 11:23 local time in Utah. Why would I not have put out a whole bunch of videos before now? Why didn't I chase views? I think you're going to find that this unfolding is so much more important than views. Right there in Hastings, Nebraska. My sister lives in Hastings. My mother lives in Hastings. And I'm going to tell you that this goes back to when I was a child. There are people that are going to be able to tell you that I've been involved with federal agencies since I was about 17 years old. But it goes back to actually when I was 12. And I've learned a lot of things. I've been taught a lot of things. But above all, there's one thing that I've learned about that has made all of this possible. Before Christmas of this year, you're going to understand exactly what that is. The last thing that I'm going to say is that think you should probably really look into a few things. Emerson Drive. She's my kind of crazy. Some of you may have seen some things posted about that. This is a video that came out 12 years ago that has somebody very special in it. Watch the whole video. But what I really want you to pay attention to is what's on the wall going by as she's on the zip line. And I'll let you determine who she is. You'll figure it out pretty quick. Then I want you to go back and see another country artist and a military man, retired military. And his name is Derek Johnson. Rattletrap 1716. Now, some of you may have heard of him, most of you have not. But he has a 3-hour video. Oh no, God forbid we have to sit down for 3 hours to learn something. You don't have to agree with everything that Mr. Derek Johnson is saying in this video. But what I want you to watch is Derek Johnson, Charlie Kirk, is a special operation. The one that was posted on 9/21, September the 21st, on YouTube. That one in particular is important because it's going to tie into something that happened the night of September the 10th. The night of September the 10th, I sent out some text messages, which I have. At 9:21 p.m. And I sent them to somebody in my phone whose name happens to be Derek Johnson. And I have those text messages from 9/21. As a matter of fact, I took snapshots of them, kept them in many places, and sent them to numerous people. And lo and behold, in those text messages, I'm describing to take the scroll bar and move it back and forth, just the way Derek Johnson describes. And on 9/10, the night that Charlie Kirk was shot, I used the word squib. Watch the video, and you'll figure it out. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. I intentionally want you to answer some questions. And I explicitly want to make sure we give Candace Owens, Ross Coulthart, Derek Johnson, let's give them a little bit of time here to come across this. Because on Candace Owens' Halloween impromptu, her words, not mine, she's putting together a timeline. And it keeps coming back to Nebraska. That's some crazy shit, isn't it?